Hey, I have red lights. All right, cool. So let's start with a little bit of review of Chapter 8. So, I'm selling a cooking pan for $32. I mark up 42% by cost. How much did the pan cost me initially? So, I am selling a cooking pan for $32. What do I write down for that part? Selling price, right? So, tell me that the selling price is $32. I mark up 42% by cost. Rate. Please tell me that the percentages are the rates. Don't tell me that the markup is $42. That would be silly. And hopefully in this problem you circled, underlined, highlighted the phrase by cost. Because what does that tell you to do? It tells you to use the formulas under the by cost section. What am I looking for here? I'm looking for the cost. What formula are you going to use to calculate the cost? Selling price over 1 plus the rate. Please be careful and make sure that you put the rate in parentheses with the 1. Now that you have the formula, take what you are given, plug it in, substitute it. If you must, you can punch all of that into your calculator. 32 divided by parentheses 1 plus 0.42. You guys can add 1 and 0.42. Would be really nice if you took it a step further and just divided by 1.42. Then you would run into the problem of dealing with parentheses. Whatever. Be safe. So 32 divided by 1.42. What did this pan cost me? 22 what? 54. Okay, and again, this is money. Round to the nearest penny. Please do so correctly. Alright, so, again, the keys. Writing down what you have, remembering what formulas you're working with, and using the appropriate sets based on what you're marking up by. Alright, so, let's go across. And let's say I bought a shirt for $12.50 and sold it for $27. What was my percent markup by price? Round to nearest 100th of a percent. All right, so I bought a shirt for $12.50. What is that? Cost. Good. Again, remember you guys, you are the store owner. So when you're buying stuff yourself, it's a cost. You sold it for $27. I want to find my percent markup by price. How am I going to get there? We're going to start with S equals C plus M. Why am I going to do that, JP? We don't have a rate. That's what we're looking for. And the easiest formula to calculate the rate, what's the easiest formula to use to calculate the rate? This gives you M. But then in order to calculate what the rate is, you are going to use that the markup is the rate times the selling price. So you're actually going to have to take 2 steps to get this problem, okay? This problem is a part of every chapter that we've gone over this test, folks. This is a percentage increase problem, right? We started at $12.50, we're going up to $27. In this case, though, we're basing that increase off of the $27 that we're marking it up. This gives us that $27 equals $12.50 plus what? How do I figure out what the markup is? Subtract the $12.50, right? We want to figure out what the markup is first, then calculate what the rate is. My markup amount is $14.50. So in order to calculate what my markup rate is, now I have a selling price and I have the markup amount. Since this is the formula that describes markup by price, now we can get the markup rate, right? So to get the rate by or set by itself, divide. As always, please be careful. When you do this division, 0.5370370, please remember that that is a decimal, not a percent yet. Convert it to a percent. And then round to the nearest hundredth, okay? Here's your hundredths place. Number to the right of it is a 3. Keep it there. My rate is approximately 57.30%. If you wanted to write it as 57.3% without the 0,
So it's 3.7.
flip those two.
Did not be lost.
Keep the numbers in order correctly. 53.70%. Again, if you want to write that 0, you do or you don't have to necessarily. My advice, when you are asked to round to a specific spot, you really should write it out to that spot. So putting the 0 in there is actually okay. In fact, I would like you to do it, but I wouldn't mark you wrong if you took it out. Again, let me reiterate one more time that whenever you are calculating a percentage increase or a percentage decrease, if you're trying to find the percent, you are always going to take the difference of where you started and where you ended. Do not just divide the two numbers and think that that's going to magically give you the answer. It doesn't work, okay? Take the difference of the numbers and then divide by whatever your starting point is. Alright, so the next one. I sold the car for $12,225. I marked it up 30% by price. How much did I pay for it? All right, so I sold the car for $12,225. My rate is 30%, which is 0.3. And now I want to know what's my cost. Remembering here that we are marking up by price. What's the formula for finding cost when marking up by price? Because I gave you cost and rate, or selling price and rate. This is what you need to calculate what your cost is. Substitute in the appropriate values. And if you can in your head, take 1 minus 0.3, that's cool. If you want to play it safe, you can just punch that in your calculator, it'll figure it out for you. So this car cost me initially $85.57.50. And again, other things I could ask other than the cost in this type of problem was what was the markup, right? Don't forget that those are other things that I could be asking for in these types of problems. All right. I bought a pair of shoes for $10.93. I mark up 225% by cost. Welcome to Walmart.
Yeah.
What do I sell these shoes for? So Walmart probably gets it cheaper than that from China. What is the $10.93? Cost. My rate is 225%. Please be careful with that. Now, when I am marking up by cost, and I've given cost and rate, how do I find the selling price? C times 1 plus the rate. Again, take the information, plug it in. Again, you guys can add 1 in your head. What's 1093 times 325? 32. 35.52. Will be what I sell these pair of shoes for. Okay, yeah, that's probably pretty close to Walmart. All right, so now the rummage sale. I'm running a rummage sale. Again, I'm trying to donate money to charity. Pick your favorite charity. I want a markup of 140% by cost as my donation. I will buy 225 boxes of junk at $2.50 per box. Again, don't ask me where I'm getting this junk, but somebody has it somewhere. It's probably my mom's house, where there are piles of junk everywhere. But I also expect 12% of my boxes to not get sold or to get ripped off, and I won't worry too much about it because it's a box of junk. All right, so what is the process when you're trying to figure out to set up prices when there is perishables, right? Things are perishing. It's a 3-step process. Step 1 is find the total money needed. Please remember that the total money needed will include the cost that you spent plus whatever your profit or your donation is supposed to be. All right? How much did I spend to get my junk? $562.50. 225 boxes at $2.50 a box. What was that number again? $562.50. That's my cost. How much profit do I want to earn? $140% of the cost. So 140% of this number, 140% of $562.50. Which is 1.4 times $562.50. How much money am I going to make in profit or donate? $787.50?
Yes.
Okay. What do I do with those two numbers? Add them, right? Please remember that your total money is your cost plus your profit. So it's the $562.50 plus the $787.50. What is that? $13.50. $13.50? Sounds right. So this is how much money I need to have in the till at the end of my junk sale. All right? Probably, garage sales, if you got a big garage, that's pretty standard, right? Depends on whether or not you're offering boxes of junk. All right, that's the first part of the problem. What's the second part of the problem? Yeah, how many items am I selling? Well, how many boxes of junk did I buy? 225. How many of those am I actually going to sell, though? How are we going to figure that out? We have to lose 12% of these. What's the shortcut way of doing it? Complement, right? You can take 12% of that number and subtract. That works just as well. It's not like it's wrong. I'm just telling you that you know this trick to taking a percentage off. Multiply by the complement, that does the percentage off for you in one step, right? 225 times 0.88, how many are we selling? 198 boxes of junk are actually going to get sold. At least that's our hope, right? So based on that hope, what price am I going to set per box? Step 3 is take number 1 divided by number 2, right? I need $1,350. I'm selling just under 200 boxes. $6.82. And more than likely, what are we going to do for these mystery boxes? What are we going to set the price? Probably for reality, if we were really running this kind of a junk sale. Yeah, we'd probably round it up to $7 because making change sucks. Right? And this is the minimum amount that you have to have in order to reach your goal, right? And it never hurts to make a little bit of extra profit, ever. Alright, but again, when you're dealing with the perishable problems, figure out how much money you need, figure out how many items you're going to sell, divide the two. Right? Because revenue equals price times quantity. Price quantity. Alright. I own a model trading company. I have fixed costs of $350,000, of which $250,000 of those are my salary. I deserve it. It costs me about $7.59 to make each train. Apparently I make them by hand. And I sell them for $21.50 a pop. What is my break-even point? So, I gave you fixed costs right off the bat. Does my salary make a difference to any of these calculations? No. Ignore that number. It's just there to make you confused. Scratch it out if you see it's not being used, so then you don't accidentally use it. It costs me around $7.59 to make each train, and I sell them for $21.50. How are we going to use those two numbers? The contribution margin, CM. $21.50 minus what was the cost again? $7.59. How much money do I make for each train that I sell? $13.91. That's my contribution margin. How do I figure out my break-even point? Fixed costs divided by the contribution margin. Again, we're trying to figure out how many items do I need to sell to start making real profit, right? So we got to cover these costs first. So this is what the calculator is going to spit back at us after we divide these numbers. Where am I going to round this number? The nearest whole number. And why am I going to round it to the nearest whole number? Yeah, probably no one's going to buy 3/4 of a choo-choo train. So we're going to need to sell a whole one. Please note, whenever you have decimals in this number, for the break-even point, always round up. Because the break-even point is where you have covered all of your costs. If you don't get above this number, you haven't covered them all. And please note that the break-even point is an items value, not a dollar amount. The break-even dollar amount, I already gave it to you. It's right here, $350,000, okay? So don't tell me that this is a dollar and cents value. If you do, you're going to lose points, okay? Because this is not dollars, this is items, which is a big difference, right? Unless, of course, everything you sell is worth exactly $1. Well, I'm guessing some places make a dollar store, so they don't have to think at all. Because anytime they write down a number, whether there's a dollar sign or not, doesn't matter, right? Because every item is a dollar. So if you want to start a company that's for the math impaired, start a dollar store. All right, so again, just remember your formulas for calculating break even. Again, you have a note card, so that might be something to write down. All right, so let's see. Seventh one, I marked up an iPhone I bought by $110. I mark up 55% by cost. What did I sell the iPhone for? All right, so I marked up an iPhone I bought by $110. What is that? Is that the selling price? Is it my cost?
No.
Is that what I paid for it?
It's your markup amount.
It's my actual markup amount, okay? So read that carefully, right? It's pretty easy to think of that as saying I bought it for $110, but that's not what it says, right? It says I marked it up by $110. And then I gave you the rate. Again, you will also look at this and say, ooh, my markup is by cost, underlining, highlighting, circling, whatever. Go into your by cost formulas. Which formula has markup and rate in it? There's only one formula that has both markup amount and rate in it. That's the one you have to use, okay? So part of what your job is when you write down what you have, going back into your equations and saying, which ones of these equations have these two things in them? Because whatever two things you have, you can now figure out what the third one is. All right? So take your numbers, C times 0.55. How am I going to figure out what my cost was? Divide by the 0.55. How much did I buy this iPhone for? $200. Is that what I asked for? What did I ask for? What I sold it for. Again, please, don't tell me this is the selling price. That would make me sad, right? How am I going to figure out what the selling price is? Yeah. Remember that your selling price is your cost plus your markup. If it costs $200 and I mark it up $110, I sell my iPad for $310. Cheap iPad. iPad 1 nowadays, I guess, right? Probably get one of those for a couple $100. Not even one of the old ones.
I think I have from Microsoft.
All right, last review problem. I mark up 33% by price. I marked up a car by $1,600. what was my price and what was my cost. Again, this time I gave you the rate first just to try and see if it would confuse you. And then afterwards I tell you that I marked up a car by $1,600. Again, I'm giving you the markup amount. Read it carefully. And now I want you to give me two things, price and cost. Those are great problems. Now I'm marking up by price. So go to your by price formulas. Which one has rate and markup in it? How am I going to figure out what my selling price is? Divide by the 0.33. What was my selling price? 48, 48, and 48 cents.
Yep.
Please note that that is my selling price. How am I going to figure out what my cost is? Subtract the two, right? Remember, this formula is a nice one, right? It's the easiest one to work with, right? So my cost is going to be my selling price minus my markup. So the 48, 48, 48 minus the $1,600 markup. I paid $32, 48, 48 initially for this lovely car.
Now, what's the difference in between the two problems where it became markup equals selling plus rate versus this one on the other side?
Markup by cost.
Okay. But don't we have the same things?
Markup by price. So the only difference is what you solve for first. In this one, we found the cost first. In this one, we found the selling price first. Once we have that, we always go back to the selling price equals cost plus markup to get the other one, because that's the easiest way to get it. And that formula, this thing, that's true regardless of which side you use, always. This is the only one that's true for both marking up by cost and by price. All right, so there was chapter 8. How about questions on the homework for chapter 14 and 34 I will give you for free because you showed up at class. So number 14, please write down 13%. Don't worry about why, don't worry about how, just write it down. Number 14, write down 13%. Don't worry, you don't need to know.
Just is. Okay. Overall.
And for number 34, which is the going the other direction, please write down 26.47%.
Did we not cover that?
No, we didn't.
I wish I would have known that before I was up until 1 o'clock. Figure out that.
Wasn't it fun?
No.
A little bit of soul searching is never bad.
What was
34? 34 is 26.47%. If you write anything down for that problem, I will give you credit for it when I go to grade the homework, just so you know. But it never hurts to have the actual right number, just in case. 42 would work. Basically, converting back and forth between percentage markup by cost and percentage markup by price, that's what those two problems are asking you to do. And I don't care, okay? once you start a business, you're going to pick one side or the other. You are not going to go back and forth. So knowing how to go back and forth to me is not pertinent to in any way, shape, or form to the real world. So don't worry about it. But there were 2 questions on the homework for that, and you should get them for free. And free. All right. So a different one that's not one of those silly questions.
28.
28. All right. Is this the up and down one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. DeWitt Company sells a kitchen set for $475. You ran an advertisement that says at the beginning of each hour, we will mark down the price by 10%, and at the end of each hour, we'll mark it up by 1%. Okay. So, we are going to let an hour and 50 minutes go along into the sale. So what happens at the very beginning of that first hour? It goes down 10%. So we reduce price by 10%. Okay. That's the beginning of the hour, right? Begin first hour. At the end of that first hour, what do?
Put it up 1%.
Yes.
Raise price by 1%. End of first hour. Now, beginning of the second hour, because we do get to the second hour, because an hour and 50 minutes gets us to the beginning of the second hour, what do?
Reduce.
Reduce price by 10%, beginning of the second hour. Now, do we get to the end of the second hour? No. Therefore, whatever's happened because of this, that's what the current price is. So, when we reduce the price by 10%, we get a 10% discount. What are we going to do to figure out what the price is at the end of that 10% discount? Take the complement, which is, and multiply, right? And I'm not even going to figure out what that number is because I don't care. Because right after that, a minute later, what am I going to do with that price?
Raise it.
I'm going to raise it by 1%. How do we raise the price by 1%? Add 1% to 1, right? So we multiply by 1.01, right? Remember when you're dealing with these things, marking down the price is 1 minus the rate. Marking up the price is 1 plus the rate, right? Again, we could figure out what that number is, but we don't care because we didn't buy it then. When did we buy it? We bought it an hour and 50 minutes later, so we got another 10% discount. And all we need to do is to rattle through that product, right? So, what did we buy our kitchen set for? Not a very good kitchen set, I would assume.
$388.60.
68?
60.
60,
I got that, but I did it the other way.
Perfect. And nope, it didn't matter how you did it, right? You could have done them one at a time,
That's
and you've
what I
still gotten the same answer, right? And that's what I'm trying to point out to you, is that it's okay to do it the long way. It's not a bad thing, right? You're still going to get the right answer. This just makes it a lot easier. And I would like to think that I'm trying to make your life just a little bit easier.
Except by assigning 14 to 34.
Well, that was just good fun.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a lot of fun.
So, now they asked me, okay, wait a second, what is the actual markdown percent based on this being my selling price and this being what my actual price is? So, what was my percent decrease? How do you figure out what a percent decrease is? What do you always have to do with the two numbers? If I told you that the price was $10, it started at $10, and now it's $8, You subtract the two of them. So guess what you do with these two numbers first? Wise are you? $86.40. $86.40 is my markdown amount. And remember that when you're doing percentage decrease, you always divide by where you started. So my percent, or my rate, is the 86.40, the difference of the two numbers, divided by where you started, the 475. So this problem is a use of a little tool in chapter 8 plus a little review of chapter 6. Lovely. And what does that work out to be? 18.18.18.18.18?
No.
18.188888?
0.181894737.
This is 18189 something blah 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 blah. Please be careful with that, right? This is the decimal representation. What do I got to do? Change it to a percent, right? So it's really 18.1894%. Round to the nearest hundredth. 18.19%. Very awesome problem.
If not.
Yes. All right, that's a good problem. All right, another one. Yeah.
Yeah, you did have to do 29 and do 30.
I love those problems too. Anytime you get to do one of the odd ones, aren't you happy?
No.
Because then you get to do 29 and check and see if your answer is correct in the back of the book, right? Alright, so number 30. Again, this is a perishables problem. How are we going about doing the perishables problem? What's the three-step process? Find out how much money we want. First, you need to know what the cost was. How much did we spend?
$320,
$2 each to make them, 100 cookies. That's our cost. What was our profit or our markup? $60 markup on cost. 0.6 times 200. We're going to mark it up $120. How much money do we need?
$320.
Total money is 200 plus 120. We need to collect $320 from our sales. How many cookies are we going to sell? We make 100. How many are we losing?
Not 10%.
10%. You guys are clever. You say, multiply by that complement of 10%. So we are selling 90 cookies. So what do we set the price for in number 29? 320 over 90. $3.56. All right. So that's number 29, right?
Right.
We had to start there.
Right.
Now, normally when we break 10 cookies, what do we got to do with those cookies?
Throw them away.
We got to eat
Eat
them.
'em.
I mean, dispose of them properly, whatever that is. All right. So now it turns out that we don't have to throw them away. We can actually sell them. So if we sell them, what are we going to do when we sell them? Are we going to sell them for nothing?
No.
We're going to sell them for $1.10. So what are we going to do from those 10 lost cookies that we normally got $0 from?
You make $11.
Exactly. So number 30, sell 10 broken cookies for $1.10 each equals $11 extra money.
So you're gonna take that off what you need.
Exactly. So you've already gotten $11 that you normally wouldn't have gotten in this first problem. So instead of needing $320, how much money do we really need?
309.
Yeah, so money needed equals 309 now.
And divided by 9.
And divide it by the 90 because that's still what we're selling of the good cookies. Right? 90 cookies. So our price is just 309 divided by 90.
343.
343?
He said that's wrong. World that.
That's a very real world problem, folks, right? I mean, if you have spoilage problems, if you have, theft problems, right, there are ways that you can collect on those things. And again, that's money, right? So it goes up into the number 1 slot. So if you have insurance on stolen items, right, what's the insurance company going to do? It's going to give you a certain percentage of your cost to make up for it, right? Again, that's just money you don't need to collect to make the profit that you were looking to make. All right? And again, one of those things that you do if you run a big business is you have to compare. Well, how much am I spending on insurance versus how much am I collecting when I have to collect? Do a cost-benefit analysis, yada, yada, yada. That's all good stuff. But that's maybe a little bit more than I can ask in a test, but that's still a good problem. Simply because it forced you to do 2, which you never expect. One more?
24.
24?
24.
All right. Alright, so 24, Front Range Cabinet Distributors in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Sells to its contractors with a 42% markup on cost. The selling price for cabinets is $9,655. What is the cost to the contractors based on cost? In other words, what's the cost?
Right, basically.
Round to the nearest tenth. Don't ask me why you're rounding dollars to the nearest tenth. You should always round dollars to the nearest penny, which is whatever. Like I said, this book can be annoying sometimes. Alright, so first thing that we see is that our rate is 42%. It's 0.42, and we note that it is by cost. The selling price for the cabinets, $9,655. We want to know what's the cost. What formula are we going to use? Since it's a markup by cost, you go to your markup by cost column of formulas. Here's how you calculate what the cost is. Throw your numbers in. So 96.55 divided by 1.42. $6,799.30. Because of course they told you to run through dime. Yeah, really, come on. Nobody gives away pennies. Very important. Keep all of your pennies, darn it. Alright, so again, keep your formula straight. Know when to use which ones. Alright? Alright, so that is Chapter 8. If you are happy with your Chapter 8 homework and would like to turn it in, please do so. If you would like, you can turn it in on the test on Wednesday. That's cool.
I wouldn't have been here today.
Tired. No bigger than a half a page.
These so nice, the big ones.
But he did
That
say
big.
money.
$1.20.
Because I wouldn't have been here.
Alright. So. All we need to do now is review other stuff. What would you like to review first?
Yeah, that's critical bar. That's the idea.
Oh, sure, I got two. Thank you. All right. This is
Yeah. Go over some of the chapter 7 stuff. And I don't know specifically
special. Let's see. I 200. What should I be buying? Shirts. Shirts at a suggested retail price of $8.99. I get a 27.83 discount with terms of 210 EOM. Weird zones. Let's see, the invoice date is, let's go with October 30th last year. And we receive our goods, spell receive correctly. November 8th, 2013. No, but you get a note card. You can't put a calendar on a note card? Why not? It's half sheet of paper, you get tons of room.
Yeah, like I said, the bank finance. It was a valid point.
Alright, so, let's see. Make sure I get something. Okay, so I pay, oh, let's go, $250 on, November 18th, 2013. I'll say partial payment. Shh. And another $325 on November 20, it's November 30th, 2013. And pay off the rest on December, say, 8th. No way, I need them for my Christmas sale. Come on. Shirts for $8.99 during Christmas. I'm gonna sell them all like that. They're really great shirts too, I swear.
Never go to Walmart and have yourself a good day.
They'll be $3.99 at Walmart. Alright, so my question to you is, let's see, first off, what is my net price equivalent rate? What is my net price? What is my single equivalent discount rate? How much do I owe after the $250 payment? How much do I owe after the $325 payment? And, of course, what is my final payment? There are more things that I could ask. And I could also ask for list price, I could ask for discount amount, et cetera, et cetera. I could ask for what was the profit from these shirts that you're going to make, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so how are we going to start this problem, though? And what are we going to call that? Except that was chapter 8. This is chapter 7. So in chapter 7, what did we call? That's the list price, right? So our first step is to say list price is the 200 shirts at $8.99 a pop. $17.98. Note I didn't ask for that, but I still gave it to you. Not a bad idea. Because what are you going to do next? Net price equivalent rate. How are we going to calculate the net price equivalent rate? Yes, very good. So hopefully one of the things that you will do on your test at some point in time is come up here and say 73, 92, 97. Because those are the complements of all of those discounts. And your net price equivalent rate is nicely enough the product of these numbers. 0.73 times 0.92 times 0.97. .651452. Please don't round any of those digits, period. Exclamation point, question. Don't round any of those, okay? Keep the whole number, all right? If you want, you can tell me that the net price is going to be 65.1452% of the list price. That's fine. But realize you are not going to lose any of those numbers, period. Okay? Because, what are we going to do to get the net price? Use that number. 1798 times 0.651452. Again, not losing any of the numbers. And this is where you will round to the nearest penny. What's my net price? $1171.31. Sounds about right. What is my single equivalent discount rate? 1 minus the 0.651452, so 0.348548. Again, don't round anything. If you want to write it as 34.8548%, that's fine, but do not round anything, okay? Not on the rates. All right, so we have gotten through net price and list price and the discount stuff, all the stuff that goes along with that. Now we have to deal with the terms. We have to deal with payments. Which date are we going to use? Invoice date. Why? Because it's end of month, and end of month is based off of the invoice date, not the received goods date. So hopefully one of the first things you did was scratched out the receipt of goods date so that you didn't accidentally use it. Not important. Now, how long do we have until we get our 2% discount?
December 10th.
December 10th.
Yes, because it's after the 25th.
November 30th.
Right, so you would think normally it's November 30th plus 10 days, right? So you'd say go to the end of October and say add 10 days. You'd think November 10th. But since this date is after the 25th, we go to the end of November, we add a full month, and then go to 10 days. So 2% until December 10th. Normally, if you see that the month is October, you would say, oh, well, it's 10 days after the end of October. But since this is after the 25th, add a full month to this, so it's the end of November. 10 days after the end of November gets you to December 10th. 2% discount all the way up to December 10th. So, we pay $250 on November 18th. Do we get a 2% discount?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. How do we deal with partial payments? $250 partial payment. Please remember that you calculate partial payments by dividing by the complement of your discount. I saw a lot of people taking 2% of random numbers to do their partial discounts or partial payment amounts on the homework. It was making me a little sad. $250 divided by 0.98. How much is our $250 really worth? 255 something? 0.12? Oh, so 10?
Yes.
255. 10 is how much our payment was worth. Again, subtract that from the net price. Don't go back to the list price, go to the net price. So we owe $1171.31 minus $255.10. You like numbers? 21, 6, 1, 9, 16, 21. So that's how much we still owe after we make our $250 payment. $325. Again, this is still a partial payment. Are we still getting a discount on November 30th?
Yes.
Yes. So keep giving yourself a 2% discount. Don't piss it away. What is that? 330 something? 63. So that's how much our payment is worth. Again, to figure out how much you owe, subtract it from how much you've already, or how much you've paid it down to already. So again, minus 330.